balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back, my friends. You are in for a very special treat today. We have Shana Danielle back with us. This is our second episode that we're collaborating on together, and I'm so excited to have her back. If you missed the first episode, you should go back and listen. But if you are a rebel and you're listening out of order, that's okay too. Today, we have Shana joining us to talk about navigating the present moment while also living in and from the future. And this episode is really inspired by Shayna's personal life philosophy. It was something that really stood out when I first talked with her. So if you haven't met her yet, Shayna is incredibly impressive. She is a best-selling author, a business strategist, a speaker, a coach. She does all of the things, wears all of the hats, does it well, and balances it with being a mother of six. So I'm incredibly inspired by her and impressed by her, and so happy that she has joined us for another episode today. So we will unpack what we mean by some of these concepts in a minute. But before we do that, I just want to say welcome back, Shayna. I'm so excited to have you here. And yeah, is there
Hey.
anything you want to, yeah, just jump in with as far as getting people up to speed on you? Anything that's happened since the last time we talked?
Hey Kayla, I am so great to be back with you and your listeners. And you pretty much summed it up overall. I'm an author, I'm a wife, I'm a mom of six, I'm a coach. I help other authors pen, publish, and profit from their books. And in 2 weeks, I'll be going to Paris to speak to a group of entrepreneurs about how they can use their book to grow their business.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited to hear. And then we get to connect again after that trip. So I'm really looking forward to that. I am sure you will have an amazing time in Paris. That sounds like a dream.
Yes, and for business. And so I've been
Yes.
going to do like different things and I'll let people know, oh, I'm not here. Oh, why? Oh, I have a business trip. A business trip? Where are you going? Paris. Oh, such a drag. Oh, what a shame.
I know work is so hard sometimes when it takes you to beautiful places to talk to amazing people.
Like Kayla.
I wish I was joining you in Paris, I do have to say. Well,
Awesome. So let's go
I'm
ahead. Let's dive in, Kayla.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so excited to see where this goes today. Um, so I really want to talk about this idea that you've shared with me. And I feel like we talked a little bit, kind of scratching the surface in the last episode, but how you really embody the future, how you embody your future self, who you're going to be, but you do it in a way that you're already believing it as if it's happening now. And you have created such transformation in your personal life. Like you are living evidence that this life philosophy is really powerful. It can really propel you forward. So, how did you develop this mindset and give us a little more insight into how you tap into this?
So even back in high school, I didn't know I was developing this mindset, but this is just an example of like how I got here. It was I wanted to go to school and I didn't want to pay for anything except books. And so I just saw myself going to college and I didn't pay for anything except books. And then senior year came around and it was this program called NJ Stars, and I was able to go to college and the only thing I paid for was books. So
Mm.
there was that. Then when I decided to make a pivot, and this will be a whole nother topic for a whole nother time, maybe in 2025, but I made a pivot and that started my series of me quitting things that did not serve me or what I committed to in a season that doesn't serve the next season. For example, going to school. I know a lot of listeners will be like, what? You were going to school and you were only paying for books and you were in your junior year at Rutgers University and you left. What? So the governor at the time made some changes to the teachers' pension system, and I had wanted to be a teacher.
Mm,
Fast forward to today, I am teaching, just not in that capacity, but I wanted to be a teacher, and I didn't like the terms and the agreements, and so I said, "Well, this won't be the route for now." And I then went into law enforcement. And I went into law enforcement because I wanted a way to buy a home. So I bought my first home when I was 22. But again, that mindset of I'm going to get this job and I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to have a house by next year. And it
mm,
didn't matter what anyone said, I was going to get that house next year. So I left school. I got the law enforcement job. Although there were a lot of different circumstances that maybe shouldn't allow that to happen, I got the job. I worked that job for 10 years, but 1 year into that job, I was able to buy my house.
mm,
Fast forward towards the end of me leaving that career and then launching into entrepreneurship. I had researched relocating for 2 years and I was able to see the different locations and the different homes and all the things. And then once I said that, okay, this is what I'm going to do, I didn't know the how. I didn't know it was going to be me being an author and then coaching. And I didn't know it was going to be all of that, but I just knew I was getting out of there. um, then it looked like me, how I said I was scrolling. Then I started taking trips and I would just go visit the places I wanted to see to help me stay more in the present in a less than healthy environment.
mm.
And so now I'm walking around the jail as a correctional officer. And the coworkers that I worked with, I know they thought I was absolutely, I lost it. But I would say to them, if they were talking about anything else outside of what's happening, does this need to be done? Unless it was like a checkbox, I'm not here for any other conversation. I'm like, yo, y'all see me right now, but I promise you, I'm not here. I'm somewhere in the future and it look much better than it looks right now. I'm in Georgia. Y'all don't even understand. They said, oh, there go Officer D. She crazy. I'm like, I'm telling y'all, I'm not here. I promise you, I got a team of employees already. I'm paying them well. I'm not one of them employees that's like paying people pennies. Fast forward, that's my life now. But when I was
Mm,
in the jail, it seemed crazy. Then I came out with my book. And on the last episode, y'all got to go back and listen. I talked about how I was bound by fear for 7 years. And 7 months later, I was able to quit my job. What I did during those 7 months from the time I pushed publish was that I continued to see myself selling books. I saw myself speaking to people. I saw myself on stages. I saw myself being compensated for the gift. I saw myself no longer trading time for money. I then started having conversations with people, and conversations with people could look like a clubhouse type setting. It could look like reading someone else's book. Like I'm having a conversation with a mentor based off of the book that
right.
you see what I'm saying? And so I believe I was talking to Les Brown on Clubhouse when it had first came out. And like a lot of people wasn't following him. It was like 12 people in the room. And Les Brown had told me that he had got contracted by a pharmaceutical company to speak to a room full of doctors, like 1,200 doctors. He was going to be speaking for 4 days for like 45 minutes each day. And he got paid $640,000 for that week. And that to me was like, oh, it's possible at this level? Wait a minute. Why I'm going in this deal? Get me out here. But again, just those conversations, just the seeing things, because sometimes when people say it's hard to live in the end, um, a lot of people have shared that they have a problem visualizing. That's a
Mm,
tool, a tactic, visualization. And to make the visualization easier, it's free to go to an open house. That's free, right? Like go to an open house in the type of home you want to live in. It's free to scroll on one of these devices that you already have, even if it's connected to somebody else's Wi-Fi, like one of these restaurants or coffee shops.
right.
Like you can scroll, right? You can go to the library and get on their computer, just in case someone happens to be listening. And it's like, well, all these other excuses, like where there's a will, there's a way. But whatever it is you need to do to see what the end looks like, that step. And then I'll share
Mm.
step two in a bit. You got anything you want to share, Kayla?
Ugh, gosh, I just love the way that this isn't something that you studied. I mean, there are people that have spent a lot of time trying to figure out like positive psychology and healthy habit building, and they dig into the science. And I'm a fan of the science. I love all of that. It's fascinating. It's amazing. But it seems like this is something that came really naturally to you from the time you were in high school that you didn't even realize was happening, where you just knew what you wanted and you saw yourself having it, and then you did. And I think this is honestly the way we work, right? Like there's nothing that's happened was it all has come from something we thought first, right? Like and anything that's been a new invention, a new discovery, like it's all come from something that someone imagined at one time, or it wouldn't be here. So the fact that you were aligned with that power and that like internal trust and faith and knowing and like that is what I want and it's going to happen, even though you didn't know how. And we both know from our conversations, like life put plenty of challenges in your path, and we can talk about navigating those more because I know it's a real issue for a lot of people. You know, you see where you want to go, but you have all these present day challenges that are they're hard, they're heavy, they're heartbreaking, but you don't let any of that slow you down. So I am glad that you mentioned your book a little bit because I did want to dig into the frame that you used when you wrote your book. So you mentioned it really briefly last time. You talked about how you wrote the book in the past tense of when I used to work in law enforcement. And you were working in law enforcement while you were writing this. So you so thoroughly believed that this was past tense for you, even though it was still your current reality. How did you have such certainty, such faith? Like, how were you able to really step into that? I think that's something a lot of people struggle with.
I think it again about those life experiences, right? Because at that point I hadn't like studied any of this, like the concepts of this I've studied within the last year. And then my whole life has made sense.
Right? You're like, that's why it worked.
I studied these concepts within the last year. Again, just developing because I serve people. So it's like trying to give them frameworks.
Hmm.
But at that point, I didn't have any concept to go off of. I just went off of my experiences. And I realized that whenever I put my mind to something, it always happened. It didn't matter what it was, it happened. And I said, you know what? Even if it takes 5 years, but I'm hoping it could take 5 months, right? But I don't like to like put crazy time constraints. But I said, even if it takes 5 years, one day somebody's going to read this book and I'm not going to be working here anymore. I didn't know for real, for real. The time from the time I pushed publish, it was going to be 7 months. I didn't know that. But the other thing that I did say from the time I was 5 years in at law enforcement, I said, I'm not working here past 10 years.
Mm.
I said that and I didn't work past 10 years. And so I guess that's the other thing that kind of put me in hyper overdrive because I had already told myself and like that was what was going to happen. And a lot of times people I find are scared to do something, but they haven't trained their mind to trust their body or their body
Mm.
to trust their mind. Even with little things, if you say, oh, I'm going to drink a half a gallon of water every day, even if it takes you a little bit to get to that point, continue to do that because that's one small yes to relearning to trust yourself because each and every person on this earth has had some sort of something that we felt we knew better and we shouldn't have done. Where the truth of the matter is, in some cases, maybe we didn't know better after the situation.
Right,
We
yeah,
better.
then.
In some cases, we really didn't know better. But I find that our current self is a lot, and more often than not, harder on our past self. So then we get stuck in this loop and we have a challenge getting to our future self.
Mm. Okay, there are so many things you just said that I want to unpack. I feel like you speak and then just magic pours out. I don't you're, you are just so in touch. So you talked about self-trust and that self-belief and the way we are when we're hard on our past selves that that's actually holding back our future self. So let's just start with one piece of that because that's a lot. But when people are struggling with that self-doubt, that uncertainty, they're feeling like they might they might know the thing they want, the thing they dream about, the thing they desire, they wish they could have, but they're not trusting themselves, or they're just too scared, they're too uncertain, they don't know what it looks like. The familiarity of whatever's happening now, even if it's horrible, feels less scary than taking a leap. What would your advice be to them, and how have you worked through that stuff yourself? I mean, we all have moments of doubt, right?
Mhm. So one small yes, literally one small yes. I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in the big picture that we don't realize it's really a small picture. So if we say, I want to lose 30 pounds this year, and we get so caught up in the 30 pounds, we forget to go outside and take a walk. That's a
Mm,
small yes. We forget to go grab the fruit instead of the chips. That's a small yes. When you think about the context of cleaning a messy house, it's like this is so overwhelming. I I don't know where to start. Just pick one spot. That's one step in the right direction. Put the dishes into the dishwasher.
mm,
Let's just put all the stuff that's on counters on one table. Let's get it all in one space. Like,
yeah.
let's make the bed. It's one small yes. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then give yourself like a celebration moment. And a celebration moment of whatever it is you're celebrating doesn't mean you have to spend money. It could be I'm going to do a happy dance. It could mean I get to have an extra, I don't know, whatever you're looking for, some sort of snack or something like some sort of celebration moment for the small yes that you made and realize that there's actually a big yes, because it takes you in the step of your big goal.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much more power in those little steps than I think you realize in the moment, especially when you're not seeing the results immediately, right? Like when you believe that that's the future and you're starting to get some of these small, you're starting to take some of those small steps, but you're still in the general sense of the present challenges, whatever those might be in someone's given life stage, phase, situation. How would you recommend people stay connected with the small yeses and the big picture, even when they're not seeing the results, even when they feel like nothing is moving and they're stuck?
The feelings of how you would feel, now that we're getting there, right? When the big thing happens. So, how would it feel for you to fit into whatever that outfit looks like? Or how would it feel for you to have that book done or that podcast started? Or maybe even not started, like go all the way to the end. Like, let's not get there, like go all the way to the end. And maybe you are getting X amount of views and X amount of resources coming in. How does it look like having a reconnection with someone that you maybe lost touch with? What are the feelings? Do you feel excited? Do you feel joy? Like, what do those feelings look like? And realize that if you want to lose 30 pounds and you go outside and drink the water, feel amazing, just like you would if the thing already happened. That's how you stay
Mm,
motivated.
I love that. Yeah. So really intentionally connecting that small thing with the big thing. Like, yes,
Yes.
it's the small yes of now, and like this is ultimately connected with the larger thing. It makes me think of like I always thought it would be cool to have a podcast. Thought that for years and years and years. And then one day I was like, I'm just gonna order some equipment and see what happens. Like, and then from that point forward, it was like, I'm a podcaster. I didn't have a podcast yet, but I started to connect with that identity and that future that I wanted. And, now I'm getting close to a year on internally guided life. So it's like you have to connect those little steps because you can spend years not even taking any steps at all. But once you start making them, if you're remembering that end point of where you're wanting to go, it can kind of get you through some of the muddy stuff, like the technical stuff, the stuff that slows us
Mhm.
down that we get lost in, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with a website, or how do I use this equipment that I just bought, or or I want to lose this weight, but I've never done something that was effective that lasted long term, whatever it might be. Yeah, I love that.
And so, like on my notes app, right? There's an app and it talks about, what I'm believing for and all the things. And so I have in here, even down to like different affirmations. I choose to be abundant. I choose to feel happy. I am healthy. I am terrific. I like myself. I have money affirmations in here. But then what I did inside of here, like there's like a two-sided table. So if you have a piece of
Mm-hmm.
paper, or for me, I like to have it in my notes because I'm always going to have my phone on me. I may not always have my journal on me. It's like as a thriving entrepreneur, this is what it looked like for me. And so I got like five different things. So whatever the goal is you're believing for, have like 3 to 5 different things of what the result is. An example is I have an amazing team who goes above and beyond for the company and the clients and gets paid well on time. And then
Mm.
next to that, how do I feel? What's the feeling associated with that?
Oh,
I feel peace.
mm.
I am a sought after global speaker. Now, when I wrote this, y'all, to this day, I'm still not global yet, right? I haven't gone to Paris. I am a sought
Soon.
after global speaker who gets my travel paid for, receives honorariums, and gets books purchased in bulk at those events because I create amazing content and serve with excellence. I feel joy.
Mm. That
So,
is so
what
powerful.
is it you're believing for? 3 to 5 things. You don't have like a whole laundry list. 3 to 5 things that you're believing for as a result of the big goal, and what is the feeling associated with it? So even down to like when I had to write my speech for this upcoming trip in Paris. And I have so many other things swirling around me, whether it's a mom with health challenges, a baby with health challenges, the doctors don't have answers, team, clients, like all these things are currently happening. And I have every reason and every quote unquote excuse to say, you know what? I'm not going to do this right now. But you know what? Writing that in all the swirl of all the things, guess what I feel? I feel joy because it's
Mm.
connected to the future version of me and what I'm believing for. I feel joy in the now in spite of all the things.
Mm. That is so, so incredibly powerful. I I like the way that you've said what you're believing for instead of like the goal. It that your language is just much more, it's just deep. It's connected with something beyond the superficial of goal setting, right? What am I believing for? Like that's a powerful thought even itself. Like I wonder how that language that you use also kind of infuses these intentions, these future yeah, this future self, right? Like it is going to be. It is the way that you kind of work with it, right? Like you're believing this and then you're believing these emotions tied to it into existence and getting to experience the joy of them now even while you're facing those challenges. And I think that's really hard. And I think a lot of people get stuck on that. A lot of the women I work with, and even people I worked with when I was in mental health, it's sometimes the challenge of the everyday when people you love are sick, when money is tight, when a tree falls on your house, like horrible things happen, how can they tap into some power through this believing process while still, you know, validating the challenge of that experience, right? If does that make sense?
So, what I can say is, in all things, it is our job to find the good in the
Mhm.
most horrible situations. We got to find the slither of good and hold on to that because we live in a polar world, meaning there's equally bad and there's equally good happening at the same time. Even if it may not seem like that right now in your life, there is both. Both are true. Bad things are happening and good things are happening. And if we want more good to start to happen, that's where we have to set our intention on. That's where we have to set our focus at. Because if you think about riding a bike, hopefully most people listening have rode a bike before. You're going to go wherever your eyes go.
Mm,
So if your eyes go to the right, you may think you're pedaling straight, and for a little while, you just might. But eventually, you're going to go in the direction of wherever your eyes go. When you think about driving a car, and maybe a car is like on some sort of a hill or a slope, or even like just straight away. A lot of times in life, we think that by pausing to quote unquote stay wherever the here is. And it's like, I'm not going to deal with anything. I'm not going to deal with the bad. I'm not going to deal with the good. I'm just whatever. Just being whatever about a situation, whether it's not being intentional to work on your marriage, not being intentional to work on yourself, not being intentional to work on your business. That's a decision of choosing to go in reverse slowly. There is no neutral. We're
Mm,
either going forward or we're going backward slowly. And at some point, we wake up and it's like, how did I get here? But we were intentional about going forward.
mm. That is powerful. That I love the accountability in that statement because not making a choice is a choice, right? Like that is a personal decision that we've made to not progress. And you're 100% correct. When people get lost in that and they're not choosing to go forward, they do end up going backward and they do end up feeling lost. And I hear those statements, the pain and the heartbreak of that is to like, I don't even know how I got here, but they didn't know where they were going either. And so, yeah, it's like this the trajectory just kind of shifts based on your focus. And if you're so focused on those challenges, that's where you're going to go. I loved your bicycle like visual, and it reminded me, I've heard someone else refer to a very similar like frame of thinking as like if you imagine the flashlight, but you can like the ones that expand, like the ones you can make really big and then you can make them small by like pulling them back. And if you're in a room that's like filled with all kinds of stuff, like treasure, trash, clutter, jewels, like all kinds of stuff in this room, and you choose to focus the light on everything, you're going to be overwhelmed. If you choose to shine it only on like the trash, like that's all you're going to see. The rest is going to be blackness. But if you choose to look at the treasure, then like that's what you see, and that room becomes beautiful. So I feel like that's really the same kind of concept as that you're getting to when it comes to like it's our job to look for and keep our focus on what matters.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, even with like my mom right now and just having to make some adjustments in the care we're providing for her because she has, her health challenges. Some people may say, oh, that's so horrible. Oh, that's so bad. And it's like, no, for me, I'm gonna find the good. It's like this is her next level in her like healing journey. And she's one step closer to independence.
Mm,
Are all the other things that someone else is saying true? Yes. But if I focus on that, I'm just going to get more of that. So I'm
right.
going to like let's go back to something really, really simple. So I was at a business event and we have like the catch box mics where it's like a soft phone type of box and it's a microphone in it and you can speak into it. And so typically you toss those around to people who you catch it, you speak, share your win, pass to somebody else or something. So I went to go pass it to the next person. And in my mind, I didn't say it out loud, but in my mind, I said, I do not want to hit this presenter. So I'm going to do all the things so I don't hit the presenter. I did not say, I want to get it to this person. My mind says, I don't want to hit the presenter. Our brain does not process don't. You're going to
Hmm.
get whatever you focus on. So when I passed the catch box, girl, it went up into the air, hit the ceiling, came down, and hit the presenter into the head. I said, I can't believe this. And then I was transparent and I shared what I was focusing on. And he said, y'all see, this is a prime example on we get whatever we focus on.
Mm. I love that. And I love that you brought up the like that we don't process the don'ts, the nots. Like, I don't want this. Like, I've heard people like when we're doing goal setting or something, they're like, well, I know what I don't want. Okay, well, that's not actually helpful. Because if you're saying, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be poor, all your brain is hearing is poor. Like, that's the only piece we're taking away from that. So, yeah, really trying to frame onto what do we actually want? What does that actually look like? And I think even of like with me, I have a history of sometimes being clumsy, but it's also something I speak into existence, right? Like if I'm like, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, fall flat on my face. Where when it's like, I'm gonna walk confidently down this hill, it's gonna be great. Usually is. Not always.
Usually, more often than not, it is.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, like when we think about people who have like life, literally lifing, and it's horrible things swirling around you. And I want to, like apologize, right, for like what you're going through, right? Realize it's not necessarily all of your fault. And I need you to find the good.
Hmm. Yeah. It's so interesting too because I think, some of our life experiences, the mindsets and the people we've been around are just own internal disposition that says easier for some than others. And like I feel like I'm a pretty positive person. Like I usually can see the good. I usually can move forward in belief of that. And sometimes that's framed as like naivete or that person's crazy or like
I'll be crazy if I got a
they
penny.
don't understand the way the world works. But I'm like, it's working for me though, but it's not for some people. I think based on what they've been around, it's not always as easy. Like it takes a more intentional and
Mm-hmm,
consistent practice to build those neural pathways
mm-hmm,
of finding the good, right? Like you have to
mm-hmm.
keep showing up for it if it's not something you're used to.
But I mean, it's no different than when we go to the gym, right? And when our muscles are being built, we actually feel weaker
Mm.
before we get stronger.
Yeah, it hurts
And
a little at first.
yes, it's painful. But before we know it, it's like we're lifting this thing with ease.
Mm.
But it was actually painful for our body to get there. And I think that in this spiritual space and this Christian space and this, however, framework of faith, belief you have space, I find that in all of them, it's like if it's painful, it's not good. But it's painful when we're growing our muscles. And
Mm.
so it's going potentially, if you haven't worked this muscle before, feel painful to find the good. But doing it every day, a year from now, it'll be easier. I
Yeah.
can't say easy, but it'll be easier than it is
Right.
today.
Get some practice in. Well, and that's such a great way to even frame like the pain as a positive, right? Like, okay, the reason this is so hard is because I'm growing, I'm getting stronger. This is new for me. It's such a validating way to think about even those challenges to recognize the purpose that it's serving, and it kind of takes some of the weight away from it, even if the experience of pain is still there, you know? I
Yeah.
love that. This is so much fun. I'm so grateful for you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this already because you talked about like the piece of advice you would give is the one small win, like one small step, one small action towards the future, the thing that people want, what they're believing for. Is there anything else that you would add when it comes to really believing in the future and aligning the present?
So we talked a little bit about visualization and how to get there, right? As far as like whatever it is you need to go see. If it's a car you want to drive, go test drive it. Like whatever it looks like, actually do what you can to see it so that you eventually can see it for yourself. We talked about the one small win and connecting it to a feeling of what it feels like to actually achieve the thing you're believing for. And the other thing that I'll share is scripting. And so, same thing in the notes, right? This is me scripting out what I believe about me. And so, it may say Shana is in whatever I am, right? Is extremely successful, highly sought after, blah, 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 blah. Shana lives in wherever it is I'm choosing to believe in this type of home. Her and her husband are, blah, 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 blah. Even down to the type of marriage me and my husband have. Shana
Mm,
has an amazing husband she can trust. She can travel anywhere in the world and know her husband is faithful and trustworthy. They haven't, like, that's in here. Shana makes X amount of dollars per year net profit. Shana brings in X amount of dollars for donations to do this. Because the other thing is when
mm,
we set money goals. A lot of people set the money goal, but they don't like set where the money's going to go. Because not it's not just about bringing in the money, it's about achieving the goal that you're able to accomplish with the money. And all the time, it doesn't require money to do that, but you can still accomplish the goal.
mm,
So I heard one person say that they had a loved one who had some emergency in Maryland and they had to get airlifted to a place in Florida. And there was some health insurance challenges and it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. And it was going to cost like $8,000 for this to happen. But they believed in somehow, some way or another, without the insurance, without the $8,000, their loved one was still able to get airlifted.
Mm,
So again, not just the money, but what are you able to do as a result of the money? Then I also talk about what my daily habits are because it's not just the big goal. What are my daily goals? So Shane is extremely driven. She wakes up at X amount of dollars at X amount of, at call it 5 a.m. every morning, make time for important things, get her day started correctly. She has enough to do this and she's doing this. She's living a John 10 life. She has an amazing team. She's known as during her free time. I'm like, literally, what am I doing
mm,
with my free time? And here are my character traits. I'm disciplined from these days to these days. I'm waking up at this time. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm eating. Shane is a woman of integrity. So when she says she's going to do something, she does it. She has
mm,
amazing communication skills. She's confident. Like even down to physical traits, right? Like what do I look like? And even if I don't look like that right now, I'm continuing to see this, to believe this about me. So
mm.
scripting really helps.
I love that. It's so interesting because I feel like this aligns so much with some of the some of the sciencey things, but in such a I don't know, soulful level. Like it's a different texture to it. But I was revisiting some of James Clear's work recently, and I was thinking about it as I was preparing for this. And one of the things that he talks about, he does all the stuff on habits, is that it's more important to align with your identity, your desired identity. And once you know the type of person that you want to be, the other stuff reinforces that. And that's exactly what you're doing with the scripting, right? Shayna is. You are. Like that's identity. That's deep. Like that's a connection with your personal self. So again, this is like this natural way of moving yourself forward that you have. But it's just interesting to me how it aligns with some of these other big speakers and voices out there today that are trying to help people improve their lives. Like this stuff really works.
Yeah, I think there's a book called like Who Not How. I forget who the author is, and he's talking about in terms of like sales and growing and all that kind of thing. But I also see the who, not how, as far as a lot of us want to figure out how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that and how we're going to get to the school and how we're going to believe the things. But none of the how matters if you haven't identified who is going to be the person once you get there. Who are
Mm,
you?
yeah. Yeah. And it just makes it so much more meaningful, right? It infuses it with this purpose and this connection as to this is who I am. These are the kind of things I do. These are the kind of things I achieve. These are the type of people I support. Like it just aligns it with meaning and purpose and depth that gives our life fulfillment. And I think that's the other piece is like people want success, they want to reach goals, they want to have these things, but fulfillment is the thing we're usually seeking, right? Like that peace, that contentment, that feeling like we've done something that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know right underneath of, and I probably move it up to the top now that I see it in here, but right underneath of my scripting, I have this statement on here. Nothing is impossible to a mind organized in positive belief. When I see myself being, doing, and having the good which I desire, it shall come to pass.
Mm. Read that first part for me again about the mind organized with positive belief. That I think that's worth repeating.
Nothing is impossible to a mind organized in positive belief.
That's powerful. Okay, everybody, get a sticky note. Type it in your phones. There's a great takeaway. That is something that we can all remind ourselves of. Oh, wow. I love that. Okay. So you have used this mindset, this all of these tools you've shared, the visualization, the scripting, like you have some really practical ways to get into this to do really bold things and to actually, take these steps. You moved out of law enforcement, you physically changed your location, and you're continuing to do this. Is there anything that you would share for people who are like very early? Maybe they don't have the benefit of some of the results yet. Like you're able, you know it works because you've got all these examples now you can refer back to. If someone's just getting started with trying to live this way, trying to believe this way, what would you say to them? Are there any suggestions you have for them?
Back to what we just said. Start with who you want to be because life has happened to you. You may have experienced different hurts and pains that you're not responsible for. It was somebody else's irresponsibility, but the healing is your responsibility. And one thing I can say when I was in the beginning of this like crazy transformation, like that 7 month time frame, the first step for me was forgiveness.
Mm,
Forgiveness of the people, forgiveness of the institutions, the systems like that I don't agree with, that I felt were oppressive and all the things. Step one was forgiveness because I knew that wherever I was going to move to, if I did not forgive and heal and do the work there, then whenever I got to my destination, I would be talking about pain and problems instead of purpose.
mm. That I feel like you just hit something that I've been kind of seeking for in this conversation. I didn't know quite what it was, but that the importance of forgiveness if you're still holding on to pain, anger, resentment, because that's a barrier. I think that's a
Yeah,
block for a lot of people because there is
yeah,
so much injustice and
yeah.
it's real and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's where your focus is, like it's a real obstacle that's going to hold you back. So like leaning into forgiveness creates the space for you to organize your beliefs in positivity, right? If you haven't done that step, it might feel impossible to get there.
Yeah, there's no way at all I could live the life I'm currently living, live the life I see myself living, serve the people I'm currently serving. Like I serve some amazing people. I'm like, they want to work with me. And they get results. What? It's like, but there's no way I could serve them if I was still holding on to the things I was holding on to. It takes up so much brain capacity and bandwidth, especially sometimes you find yourself thinking about or arguing or whatever with someone that's not there. Like
Mm.
that's where I was at. I was at a
Hmm.
space where I'm arguing with people in my head who aren't present, rehearsing what I would say to them.
Mm.
There's no way I could do what I'm doing if I did not take that step first. So, to the person who has yet to potentially see some of the fruits of what we're talking about, more than likely, that's step one: forgiveness, healing.
Mm.
Step two is then now as a result of forgiving, also forgive yourself because I had to forgive myself for holding on to this for so long. I had to forgive myself for allowing these people to take up rent-free space in my head. I had to forgive
Yeah.
myself, right? Like
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that hit. That hit.
I'm like, and then I made a decision, I'm gonna get paid for this. Right? I said, I went through all this pain, I'm gonna get compensated for it. And now I get to get compensated for it. And I don't have to talk about the people's names and I don't gotta do them dirty, but I get to talk about the healing that I went through after going through what they put me through. And
Mm.
then I get compensated for that.
Yeah. I Yeah, the forgiveness piece, it's just, it's not, it's forgiving the things outside, of course, the people, the circumstances, the systems, all the brokenness, forgive that. But then the forgiving yourself and forgiving your past self, I feel like that's where some of the real work is. And a lot of the women that come to me, dealing with stress and burnout, that's a lot of it. Like they're holding on to these angers towards decisions they made or situations they were in or situations they're still in, and they it's blocking that self-love from coming through, right? Like it's such a huge barrier. And honestly, I think the forgiveness of other people, as hard as it is, kind of depends on the person, but that can come a little easier than the forgiveness of self. Like that's
Yeah.
usually the hardest hurdle
Yeah.
to
Also,
overcome.
step one was other people, system,
Yeah.
all of that. Then step two is yourself. So like, then it had to deal
Ah,
with me. And then I get to figure out now who do I want to be moving forward from here?
mm,
I get to choose. And like realizing there's real power. And the fact that you get to choose, you do not have to be who you were 5 minutes ago. You literally can make a decision in the now and say, I choose to be whatever it is.
yeah. Gosh, this conversation is making me think back to like very young and hurting Kayla. Like I feel like she's in this conversation with us because sometimes those past versions of ourselves, they need forgiveness and just a little love. Like we need to forgive them, love them, and let them be and focus on what could be. And I think we all have these shifts. Almost everybody that I speak to on this show and just in life, right? We all have these pivotal moments where things were really hard when there was a lot of pain. But the people who usually end up talking to me or end up doing really cool, amazing things, really living lives that fill them up are the ones that didn't stay in that moment. In that moment, from that pain, somehow figured out how to heal and how to see a different future. And
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. We've just
Yeah.
given the how-to guide.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I feel like we've gone so many places, and everything you say is just so powerful. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you were hoping we would get to? Something that is feeling real for you and your work right now, something that's coming up in your clients? I just want to open it up to you. What do you want to share with the people listening that could be related to this, or we could even take a left turn, but anything that you wanted to get to or that's feeling present for you that hasn't come up yet?
Be okay with taking a pause to reset and then move forward, because a lot of people, they see me, they see what I'm doing, they see all the things I've overcome, and it's like, man, Shana, you just keep going no matter what. Like you just keep, you're so resilient, and this, that, and the third. Yes, and resiliency is typically what comes after my pause.
Mm,
Like currently, I have paused showing up on social media for the last couple of weeks because as I continue to serve my current clients with excellence, as I prepare to go to Paris, as I navigate my family and these different health challenges, it's like I get to pause in this moment showing up on social media for the
mm,
now. I get to pause having conversations with different people and enforcing a boundary. And it doesn't mean that I don't love certain people or anything, but it means that I love me so much that I have to pause.
mm,
And I want to encourage and empower anyone listening who feels like, I just have to keep going, I just have to keep going, I just have to keep going. Pick and choose what you have to show up for and be okay with pausing the other things so then you can figure out what forward looks like.
mm. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you said that because we've been talking so much about the future and where we want to go and how we can get there and how we can believe and trust and have faith and all of this matters so much. But like the pauses are a part of it, and we didn't address that at all. And that's something that I feel like it's hard to do sometimes. It's hard to see how the pause is in service of that future, and we need that reset to make sure we're in alignment, to orient, to make sure we're going in the right way, to make sure we have the strength to keep going, that
Yeah.
we've been rested, all of that.
And then also, to add one more layer to that, is once you have paused, be intentional to continue a rhythm of rest. And a
Mm,
rhythm of rest could look like you take, I don't know, 15-minute, 20-minute walks outside every day. A rhythm of rest could look like there's one day of the week, maybe 2 days of the week, where you take a chunk of time, a few hours, if not the whole day, but some people are in a season where they can do the whole day, but like where you do nothing. And I mean nothing. Like that's the time where if you want to binge a show, binge a show. That's the time if you got a pool and you want to sit by the pool, sit by the pool. But like do nothing. And for a lot of people who are creatives, doing nothing is work.
Hmm. I
Like
feel that.
like for real, but rest is work, but literally do nothing because and again, it's experiential, not just what I've read, but I remember my husband and I were working on like trying to do some things in the home in New Jersey. We were trying to do doorknobs and we've changed doorknobs before, but I don't know what it was this one time. We couldn't get the thing working. We tried. It just was getting frustrated. It was, and it just wouldn't work. We walked away from it. We're just laying down, chilling. And then, aha, there was this one thing you didn't do right. And then we went and clink, clink, and all flowed. But like, I'm sure almost anyone listening can think of a time that you were frustrated about something and you might have been taking a shower, you might have been in the pool, you might have been walking. All of a sudden, the aha
Hmm.
came to your mind on whatever it is you were frustrated about. But typically, when we're frustrated and we're trying to push, 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 I gotta get, right? We keep driving ourselves to try to do it and force it. And we're trying to force a square into a round hole. So create a rhythm of rest daily and weekly. Um, yeah.
Yeah. You're speaking my language. I think the people listening, many of the women that come and be a part of my community, the rhythm of rest is a struggle, right? Like showing up for that. I mean, that's where the stress and the burnout comes in because that rhythm of rest isn't there. And so no matter how big your dreams are, your goals are, what you're believing for, like you have to have those spaces of quiet, of stillness. And like you said, it allows other stuff in. Like not only is it good just to be still and be slow, but there are these unintended benefits that almost always emerge in that space because you're open. You're not forcing things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been so amazing. I'm like, we could keep talking for 7 hours, but I get to bring you back on one more time. So I think this is a good place to close. Like, I feel like we've taken people through this mindset, this life philosophy that that you embody, that has gotten you so much success that you share with your clients, that now you've shared with us, and people can start to apply. Thank you. And is there anything you want to say before you say goodbye, and where can people find you? We'll end with that.
Um, Friend listening, know that you are amazing. You are talented. You are awesome. And keep showing up for you because things get so much better from here. You got this. And if you want to find me on social media, you could find me on most platforms as I am Shana Danielle. So it's I am SHANADANIELLE.
Perfect. Well, I encourage everyone to stay connected and make sure you follow Shayna and keep up with the work she's doing. And also know that we are going to do another episode after she gets back from Paris. So you'll have that to look forward to. I know I am. Take care of yourselves and take this to heart. Spend some time with it. Find a way to use one of these tools. I feel like we've talked about some really deep stuff today, and we've also talked about some really practical, grounded strategies. So find something that resonates with you wherever you're at and see what happens. Give it a try. All right. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and we will talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Internally Guided Coach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.